I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies. I love cookies.
Welcome to Cookies, the world's most influential basketball podcast. I am Ben Detrick. Jordan Redaelli is on vacation. Andrew Kuo, however, takes 0 days off. What's going on, Andrew Kuo?
I take no days off, Ben. I'm feeling great. I'm feeling awesome. How you feeling?
I'm feeling all right.
Oh,
No
happened?
complaints. You know, no Corona V yet, unless it's like the kind of like walking Corona V, in which we've all had that.
Yes, the self-inflicted Corona V, the panic, the classic. I don't know, the edginess that comes from watching all these people suffering the same thing.
You know, I had a thought, and what if we all have Corona V?
We've had Corona V this whole time.
Mm-hmm. And the actual virus is the coronavirus that we made along the way.
Oh, interesting. Mm-hmm. I want to crack so many jokes about Corona V because it's so ripe. It's just like these pieces of fruit dangling from a tree, but I just can't.
And according to the World Health Organization, only 3 out of 100 people are going to be offended anyway.
Oh, interesting.
By your jokes.
That's twice as few as usual.
Sure is. Yeah, have you been paying attention to all the political turmoil? Apparently there's something going on in the U.S. government.
Weird. Does it involve a bunch of old guys?
Everyone's a boomer. There are some silent generation types in the mix, though.
Tight.
Silent generation, underrated. No one speaks up for them.
Right. Unsung.
When will their voice be heard?
Yeah, man. That was a pretty wild week. A lot of dropouts in the Democratic runoff for our candidate.
One thing that's kind of amazing is if you put Bill Clinton, George Bush, the one that's not dead, and Barack Obama, obviously, you put those guys into this race, they would be the youngest guys in it.
Yeah, aren't Bernie and Trump right where John Kerry is, kinda currently? They're
both older than him too.
Wow, that young buck John Kerry.
That spring chicken.
Yeah.
So yeah. Let's chat about what happened this week when the DNC conspired to rig the election against Bernie. Do you have any feelings about that big conspiracy?
I like how we were texting and you were firing off all these conspiracy theories, but they weren't lining up with like the information. I was like, yo, this is the most confusing thing, and trying to make sense of it is hilarious. And
I'm not sure what you were confused by. My utterly coherent unraveling of the conspiracy against Bernie, which I did, yes, in real time over text.
Mm-hmm. And do you consider yourself a Bernie brother?
A Bernie bruh.
Do you even vote for Bernie bruh?
I like Bernie's politics, so I support him. I think that he has a general outlook that lends itself towards respecting human dignity, and I think that's something that I fuck with.
Way to dodge that question like a true politician.
Well, I mean, what's a Bernie bro? Does it mean am I hassling people online? No, I'm not bullying across Twitter. I just bully with Sixers t-shirts.
And you bully your co-hosts.
I bully you. I bully you with texts.
Yes.
But those are ones that are like, if you dig into those text messages, you will uncover a conspiracy.
Oh, really? Okay, really? Oh, wow. Okay. Yes.
You're just not seeing it, dude. So anyway, yes. There was an aligning of all the corporate Democrats in a carefully orchestrated manipulation of the democratic process, in which they all lined up behind this new kid on the block, Joe Biden.
It's a young whippersnapper, man.
So, all right, let me tell you what bothers me
Go off.
in this conspiracy. You know, when you go back to the last election cycle and the DNC and the whole Democratic Party backed Hillary. And at that point, Bernie was a nobody. He was an outsider. He was just a old man shaking his fist at the sun. And over the last 4 years...
Cloud.
Yeah. Over the last 4 years, Bernie's ideas have become far more mainstream. The Overton window on things like universal health care and free college education have shifted. So I understood why the DNC congealed around the Hill Dog last time around. This time didn't feel right because who the fuck is Joe Biden? Like, you know, he did not run a good campaign. He did not win debates. He didn't have money. He didn't have ground game. His brain has melted. There was nothing about him that made you say, all right, it's time to get behind this dude. It just felt arbitrary and lame. He rode Obama's coattails to a victory in South Carolina where he had never even won a primary in his 89 years on the planet previously. And then all of a sudden, everyone just dropped out and it's like Biden season. That's my grief here. It's like, are you sure you want to like pull all the levers to get this dude into the pole position? Like the guy can't think. His brain is like porridge.
But agreed. But when you ask the question, does the DNC want to kind of round up the troops for this guy? And the answer is yes, they absolutely do. And it comes back to, like, if Biden is so weak, then why couldn't Bernie beat him? It's because nobody in the DNC really likes Bernie because he's not a Democrat. So he had to do more in order to do this, and he didn't. And I like Bernie's politics too. I'm happy with Bernie as the president of the United States. But as we always say, the DNC is a corporation with a path, with CEOs, with members of the board, and they don't like Bernie Sanders.
Absolutely. I mean, I get why they do it. It's to protect their own interest, and he's one of their guys. It just feels even more lame when it's someone who did not do anything well and was not a good candidate and is not a strong candidate.
I mean, if
like, we'll see what happens, right? You know, It's like if Warren is the vice president and then they're going to roll out Obama and Hillary to endorse him, you know, if Bernie keeps chugging along. Like we know how this is going to play out.
Yeah, for sure. And it's funny when you say it was rigged against Bernie, because that's how Warren supporters feel. That's how every supporter feels that didn't get to where Biden is at now. They think everything's rigged against them. And that's just like the nature of this process. Everyone's fighting, raging against the machine and fighting the power. And
you are correct in that. Except in this case, we did see everyone basically come in to screw Bernie simultaneously. It was like everyone dropped out right before Super Tuesday. Everyone endorsed Biden.
Well, they don't like
Warren
Bernie.
Stayed in there. I know, but I'm saying there is a difference between saying, hey, I'm a Beto dude and he got screwed. Like, I mean, we literally saw everyone come together to create this huge media frenzy about everyone dropping out and supporting Biden 24 hours before Super Tuesday. Like, that was orchestrated by like Obama and the DNC and all the stooges to do that. And you are right. If people were like, nah, we're all on Bernie anyway, like, he would have won. All right, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah, for sure.
People still had to vote for Biden.
Yes.
But it was creating a situation that was very tough for Bernie to go against everyone at the debate and then have everyone turn it with him and say to their supporters, vote here. It created a ton of press, a ton of votes going towards Biden. That's not easy, and that was not organic.
No, but this isn't a game. This isn't a basketball best of 7. This is a lunchroom cafeteria. It's that meme. And it's literally politics. And I feel like I always forget that this is just relationships within people with different amounts of power. And this happens during every election cycle, whether that be the presidency or your local politician. It is not necessarily transparently fair.
For
know what I
sure.
mean?
And that's why even when Elizabeth Warren was kind of doing some bullshit, I was like, look, she's running for president of the United States. Whether this is right or wrong, it's not about Friends. It's not about...
It is about Friends almost, right?
But you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
I'm talking about... It's not about her friendship with Bernie at this point. She's trying to become president. You know, you're going to break some eggshells here, man.
Yeah. And she's especially fascinating because I really liked her as a candidate and was really disappointed to see not many people vote for her. And a lot of people, smart people, think that it's because she kind of broke from character and kind of hedged from her original stance because that kind of belongs to Bernie. But what choice does she have? Because he's kind of the architect of these policies. And in the end, that may or may not have hurt her. We're not sure. I think there's
okay. So just to I've just started recording after Warren has announced that she's dropping out. Mm-hmm. So that's the context here, just so people know. We are aware that Warren is dropping out.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad to me. I really liked her as a candidate, but it's time. You know, like we're not in any place where more candidates help this cause. So,
in your opinion, let's go back to Elizabeth Warren for a second here. Why do you think that she struggled to get votes? Because, as you had mentioned, there is this conventional wisdom about her making strategic errors and her kind of lacking a focal point after she left Medicaid for All. And there are lines when you can trace her departure from taking a strong stand and saying we're going to have Medicaid for All to her collapsing numbers.
Yes.
There are some lines there. But in your opinion, like, everyone agrees that she's smart. Everyone agrees that she's capable. Most people like her politics. Why didn't it work?
I think she was walking a few tightropes. The same tightrope that Bernie was walking, one of them, which is all these new ideas. And it's funny to see the way people voted this week because the reading of it would suggest that people were captivated by his policies, but in the end didn't vote for them. And a lot of analysts think that maybe people don't vote the way they speak or feel. They vote more conservatively. And I think Elizabeth Warren was walking the tightrope of sharing a lot of these ideas with Bernie, but then also realizing that there was a risk there, and even more so, those policies belong to him. So she was trying to hedge back to where Biden was. And I think not standing steadfast is what hurt her too, which was the second tightrope.
Yeah, and her main support group was sort of moneyed professionals, people with high educations.
Yeah.
That isn't really like the class that carries people to victory. It's certainly a respectable group of people to have as supporters, but that's like not that many people. Mm-hmm. You know, like super educated and wealthy, like you can get some money, you can have great articles written about you, you can have good press, but that's not necessarily like a winning coalition.
No, it's so interesting. Like in 2020, I have to detach myself from my feeds because they're all a certain way. I think everybody at this point mutes certain people or just ignores certain voices on social media. And my feed is definitively pro Bernie. And it doesn't bother me. I like people who are excited about kind of these virtuous ideas. These are ethical ideas. I don't know if they work politically, and that's why the debate is electability, and Bernie supporters don't like that conversation because it shows kind of the underbelly of the politics that we don't like to think about.
I think that the idea of electability is pretty fragile. It's like you don't know what it is until someone wins an election. Like you can say he's not a good candidate because I don't like him or his politics are bad. Look, do I think...
But that's data. That's real. That's like winning a game. Be like, well, it was a coin flip. I'm like, well, if you win 8 of 10 coin flips, that's information.
Well, what I'm saying is you can look at Donald Trump and say, this guy is so unelectable. And that's what the Never Trumpers were really about. It wasn't that the Republicans were actually outraged at the stuff he does or says or his politics or anything. They just thought he was a loser.
Yeah. I mean, he may be an anomaly or he may not. Like, it changes after 4 years, 8 years, 12 years. At the time, I think the people I love to listen to thought he was very electable and were terrified of him for a long time.
I'm just saying the Republican never Trumper stance was not out of moral outrage. It was out of fearing that he was like a bad horse to back.
Yeah, and you're getting at something which I think made me step back from politics a little bit in terms of caring so much, and even sports, because there's a mechanism in place that isn't just about who's the person with the best ideas or who can articulate our struggles as a country. There's things at play that I don't love to think about, but I understand that that's how it goes, man.
I do wonder if the Democratic Party could have done better. You look at the guys who came out, and at one point I was like,
Bummer, man.
I was like, this seems like a pretty good crew. You got Warren. At the point, you're like, Booker's he's all right, and not that I love these
Beto.
candidates, but you're like Beto looked like a strong candidate. Kamala Harris. You looked at it and you're like, all right, there's a diverse group. There's a lot of voices, a lot of people who seemingly would make good candidates. And you're like, Joe Biden, Mac.
Well, it's a new.
Oh my God, this guy can't think. His brain is broken.
It's like the New England Patriots, right? It's just like there's parity, but within that parity, the New England Patriots always win.
Also, man, I'm so sick of the toxicity of Biden bros. Just kidding. They're not online. They can't get the router to work.
I have no Biden friends, man.
That's what I mean. It's wild.
Yeah. But that makes sense, though. We live in New York City, downtown New York City. We're in an age bracket. Obviously, all we know is Bernie fans. I know a couple of Yang fans, but no.
And I know Warren people.
Yeah, I like Warren. I mean, I like Bernie and Warren. And I don't know. I've kind of resigned myself to just seeing how this plays out because I do feel powerless sometimes, and there's a lot of people who do a zillion times more things than I do. They go out to Texas, they go out to swing states and talk to people, and that's incredible, and that makes me happy about this country. But I don't know. I feel like I vote, I try to talk about it, and that's all I got, man.
I understand the urgency of beating Trump in the election, and that is the overarching question: who can beat Trump? And I think that's where you get the support for Biden, especially from older people.
100%.
We know this guy.
This is it.
We know him. We got to beat Trump. We know this guy. And old people come out and vote. And you looked at the exit polls. Young people were all for Bernie. Old people were all for Biden. And what I am dismayed about is that it does feel like, just like with Hillary, that the Democrats are going to make the error of defining the party in a general election via negative space. And I don't think it's a winning strategy. And that's one of the reasons I like Bernie, because Bernie offers you something. He's saying, I'm going to give you health care. I'm going to give you free education. I'm going to do these things for you if you vote for me. Biden doesn't offer you anything.
Yeah.
And Hillary only seemed to find her footing when she said, I'm not Trump, though.
Yeah.
And that's what Biden's running as, not being Trump.
But this is an ideological discussion. This is not
But
a
this feels like
discussion.
when John Kerry ran against George W. Bush.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, I'm not him.
Yeah.
And I do not think that's a great strategy. We will see.
I mean, admittedly, the DNC plays prevent defense way too much. One time is too much. But Bernie couldn't beat it. So, like,
But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah,
But Bernie's still alive.
He's still alive.
And I do think the positioning of Biden versus Bernie is favorable to Bernie. Now with Warren out, it's just those two. Okay, put them on stage together. See what happens.
Oh my God,
we might see a brain aneurysm from either of them. Like we are in. We're in the weeds.
Man, and there was some young bucks in this race, but
shout to your man Pete Buttigieg,
my guy, Mayor Pete. it's funny how I think Bernie's ideas are pretty fantastic and I'm into them, but they don't really align with the way older people vote and this competitive nature of this game, and neither did Andrew Yang's. And it's interesting. I'm not going to get on my soapbox, but it's interesting to hear Yang
get on your soapbox.
It's interesting to hear someone like Yang get roasted for ideas that I think were as cool as Bernie Sanders' ideas.
Yeah, he was just a fringe candidate.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And Bernie has been fringe for so long, he's been legitimized, kind of. But
it's like that, and I'm not just saying this because of Yang. It's like that thing from Chinatown, where they say, if you get, what's the phrase? The exact quote is like, if you stick around long enough, like you get respect eventually. And they said ugly buildings, politicians, and prostitutes.
Is that a Chinatown thing?
Oh, it's like a line from the movie Chinatown.
Oh, I thought you meant Mott Street.
I mean, kind of.
I was like, you stick around long enough, you get some chicken
You'll be in
rice?
every single movie when they need a street in Chinatown.
Doyers.
You can be Doyer Street.
We are all doyers. I don't know, man. This is pretty interesting, but I always... Can we talk about Bernie's trying to capture the imagination of a certain demographic by...
Bernays sauce?
by sidling up to the Strokes and Rage Against the Machine, and it... Are we old enough where this is irritating, or are we young enough where this is cool? Like,
yeah, I mean, I know you were trying to get to that Public Enemy concert.
I was trying to fight the power of you not letting me go to the Public Enemy show.
You know, look, it's weird to see like the mid 2000s trotted out as nostalgia, and it's 15 years ago. Like it sure is.
Dude, I was watching a video online of Albert Hammond Jr. talking about how he had to get neck surgery, and now he works out 6 days a week and eats salads. I'm like, yeah, this is the Rolling Stones, right? They're all still alive because they sleep in hyperbolic chambers, except for Keith Richards, who maybe still smokes cigarettes. I don't know.
Like, where are the klaxons now?
Where are the vines?
Sevi Fav.
Oh,
Fave? Fav?
Sevi Fav. That's film animation video because they're from RISD. One of the best bands I saw in my years at RISD. I think I was lucky enough to be there when Les Sevi Fav and Lightning Bolt were the two bands.
You can hold a candle to the bands from Wesleyan, however.
There were some good bands, right?
Yeah.
MGMT? Am I making that up, or was that Vassar?
I think it was MGMT Chairlift.
I like that Chairlift song.
Das Racist. Leaf.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, where's Leaf?
He's around.
Is Bernie going to shout out to Chairlift and get them to play a rally?
All right, so let's wrap up this with my one point here. I actually want to see Biden and Bernie, and if Bernie can't beat Biden one-on-one, I'm with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
much.
okay, it's been rigged, it's some bullshit, but now it's one-on-one. Like, give Bernie the rock, cross Biden to the ground, go in for the jam. Like, the ball's in it's mano-y-mano.
Yeah, but to take your point, the Bloomberg money is like this weird outlier where you just get to add a healthy DeMarcus Cousins at the end. You know, like that money is a big deal.
Of course, and look, there was a lot of tanking going on. If we're going to make this a sports analog, there was some heavy tanking.
You know, I believe in the tankathon.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Well, moving along to more Bernays sauce. Shout out to our buddies from two Greenpoint restaurants. Their first one was Chez Ma Tante, which was great. And their new one, Le Crocodile, which just got 3 stars in the New York Times from Pete Wells. Congrats to those guys. That is a high honor. As far as I know, there's only a handful of 3 stars ever in the borough of Brooklyn.
Shout out to those kings. Well deserved. That food is so delicious that I was not surprised when Pete Wells agreed. Cool room, awesome menu.
The review that came out, I want to say it went online Tuesday. I think it ran yesterday. It was a glow.
Yeah, I've never seen him so positive, man. Yeah, like he was having a good day.
He was having a blast.
Yeah, it's like, whoa, this is the guy he slaughtered steakhouses for a living.
Yeah, man. I mean, look, they came out, and our buddies, the chefs, Jake and Aiden, they came out with 2 stars in their first one and 3 in the second. That's LeBron shit.
5 stars in 3 years, I believe.
Yeah.
And shout out to the front of house genius, our vacationing cohort, Jordan Redaelli.
Absolutely. That is family.
But well deserved, man. All seriousness, that is an accomplishment that like made my jaw drop. I mean, they deserve it, but to see these teams win championships is like, yo, you're good.
So just for people who aren't totally familiar with the New York Times, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star. 4 is the most, and that goes to like places like 11 Madison Park.
Mm-hmm. Which I've never eaten. Have you eaten there?
No. Just incredibly lavish, like spectacle dining.
Front and back of house, like
these are the best restaurants on the planet. You know,
Yes.
You couldn't just kind of open one up. They're the best on earth.
Right.
So like, it's not even attainable. It's like, ooh, we got 4 stars. It's not like movie reviews. Mm-hmm. So 3 is really the most you can get if you're not one of those sort of mythical, chimerical beasts. So like 3 is insane. And again, as far as I can recall, there's only been like 4 or 5 in all of Brooklyn ever. Mm-hmm. So really lofty. Here's what I want to ask you. Is it fair to cook French food because it's so critically beloved?
This is the debate people have with the Michelin Guide all the time. The top ranked restaurants in the world in that award are mostly French. And there's a smattering of Asian food and Mexican food, but the debate is, or the question is, do critics think that food is like cultural in a way where it's affordable and obtainable and not lofty to the ranks of something presented like French cuisine with like this magical front back of the house cocktail kind of symbiotic relationship?
Is there Gallic bias?
Always. I mean, this is the universe, right? When Warren supporters say this is a sexist country and our candidate should have done better, they're right. And when amazing restaurants that don't cook French food feel like their cuisine isn't respected, they're also right. That doesn't take anything away from your boy Joe Biden or an amazing restaurant. And I went back and looked, and Pete Wells gave a Queens Chinese Szechuan restaurant 3 stars 2 years ago, which I went to, which I didn't quite agree with, but it was awesome. I went there. I believe we talked about it on this podcast.
Cookies hoops.
I put on my basketball shoes and I scampered over Queens to check out this restaurant that had just gotten 3 stars with my buddies, and it was good. But right around the way was Spicy Tasty, my favorite, and I wondered why they never got the recognition. And Spicy Tasty is now closed.
It's wild how much power Pete Wells has, and that it is definitive.
He's a kingmaker.
If he gives you 3 stars, you've got 3 stars. He will not review your restaurant for several years. You're just get 3 stars.
I love that because
it's cool. It's cool. It is a unique power.
It is unique, and I understand wanting to break that down, but I kind of like it in a nostalgic way because in art and music, there are no more critical voices of that gravity. I mean, in art, you have Roberta Smith and Jerry Saltz, who carry a ton of weight, but even they admit that they can't really change the perception of an artist as opposed to the market changing that perception. And in music, we've just seen like a demolition of the Grammy Awards are just totally arbitrary to me.
And those voices like Robert Christgau, from the Village Voice, who had a very powerful voice in criticism. Now it's just like another guy on Twitter.
And we saw that movement a little bit with the New York Times, and I especially loved the writing of like Peter Meehan. Peter Meehan's writing I really loved, and he kind of made cheap eats a thing. And I believe he's now at the LA Times, but he took a break to do stuff like produce TV shows and a magazine, Lucky Peach, and I thought that was more interesting than giving restaurant stars. But I'm really grateful for Pete Wells, who sticks to it.
And I think, and I'm saying Pete, I don't know him. I'm saying Pete's writing has changed a bit too. I think early on he was very concerned with minutia, the kind of plate that someone served on, or the pronunciation by a waiter of a foreign word. And I think now he's gotten to be a little bit more of a vibes guy, and I respect that. And I like that about Sam Sifton's restaurant reviews, that he was like a director of vibes, if you will. He described what the place was like, and I want writers to tell me more about the atmosphere than necessarily the food. I want to know what it's like. Like, what's the room? Is it a muscular, buzzy New York room? Like, those are important to have. Or is it
that's a cliche.
Off the beaten track? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, there was a cliche that was kind of joked about, I think like 10 years ago, about like describing the room and having a story with the restaurant. And it was a very... I understood that, like, first person, like the antagonizing of the first person criticality, being like, this reminds me of a meal I had when I was a kid. And it's like, well, I'm not going to mess with your childhood. Cool. But what does that have to do with me? And I really love the way the food media world has changed with, like, I love like Alison Roman. I think she does an amazing job at the New York Times and on her Twitter and her recipe books. She's a force. And I love how Bon Appetit our buddy Adam turned that magazine not only into a beautiful magazine, but made internet stars out of these test kitchen people who are just like, I don't know, shooting stars at this point. It's amazing that the experience feels less distant than it did 10 years ago. Do you know what I mean?
Well, when I was writing nightlife reviews for the Times, there was not a star system, but I would go to a new place and we'd wait until sort of the buzz had subsided, and then just kind of, and these were short, and just kind of tell people what it was like. And I think it was always fun to try to describe a place, but also try to contextualize how it fit in the New York City nightlife ecosystem. And I do appreciate when people kind of acknowledge and show that they understand the history of the chefs, the history of this food, the history of this dish, how it works in New York City. I think that's important to chronicle, because otherwise you can just look at a menu 20 years from now and be like, oh, here's what they were cooking. I think preserving these little moments in time in a place like the New York Times, where it will likely be there as long as there are humans around, is kind of cool. And that was always what I sort of viewed it as, that if someone was incredibly bored in 20 years from now, they could just go back and read all my little nightlife reviews and be like, I kind of get the handle on what was happening. Because, like, that's important to me, at least.
I mean, yeah, I'm kind of a kid of, like, librarians, and my father collected books, and I grew up collecting records, so I really believe in, like, the preserving of, if you can't frame the thing, then the thing kind of doesn't exist anymore. And it's odd to talk about Lil Uzi Vert put out a new song this week that was pretty good. It was a Backstreet Boys sample, but now I feel an obligation to frame Lil Uzi Vert because he's been out for so long, and these people like yourself and Sam Sifton and John Caramonica, like, it's the voice of which they describe something that is my memory of it, and that's where I love writing the most. It sounds hokey, but when someone can articulate something I can't, it's a really wonderful feeling. Like when a politician says something I feel, on screen to everyone at the same time, it's like it's empowering. And I will always love restaurant reviews and album reviews and art reviews.
To that point, we're talking about the opposite of recency bias.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about preservation of things when they were new in order to prevent them from fading into obscurity.
Mm-hmm.
And in basketball, team sports is highly influenced, dominated by recency bias. And we're seeing that right now when the Bucks
both,
are on. But I think it's so based on the immediate results that, okay, what happened? The quality of a team is what they did today, not what they did a month ago. And Jason Tatum is a top 5 player on the planet and a superstar because he had a hot month. It doesn't matter that he was heaving up bricks for the first 2 months of the year. So we're seeing that now in the MVP discussion where everyone's like, well, what about LeBron? And Giannis was like a unanimous MVP. They're going to win 70-ish games. He's been dominant.
But he just lost one.
Wait, what about LeBron?
Yeah. I mean, with sports that's why I kind of like I got more and more interested in sports along the way, because it has both those things you talk about. It's the recency bias. You know, the Bucks lose one game, they get whooped on one game, and it's like, what's wrong with the Bucks? Like, nothing's wrong with the Bucks. They had a bad night. They had they shared a bad sub sandwich that was 7 feet long. You know, like
your MVP got stonewalled by Bam Adebayo. Couldn't be me.
Yeah. It's like, how about this guy? Oh, Jason Tatum. Well, that's another situation. He does not get stonewalled by Bam Adebayo because he did not play Bam Adebayo. And like, but then there's, you know, that extreme opposite that we don't have to go into with Charles Barkley saying, or Shaquille O'Neal saying, no big man is up to snuff, and you know, I'm the gold standard, and he's not wrong, but that narrative is also annoying. But yeah, I like
it's like the perfect nexus of two totally annoying parallels.
It's the most fun. It's
where people
very fun.
Only treasure the long past.
Yeah.
The 90s, that's the best. While totally hating modern basketball.
Yeah.
But simultaneously, you're only as good as your last game.
Yeah. It's like an inverse bell curve. It's the long past, and then the short pass gets trashed. Like, no one really wants to talk about Russell Westbrook in those terms right now. We're dogging Westbrook a little bit.
Is this your horseshoe theory?
It could be. But if Westbrook... Well, Westbrook it has to wait it out a little more to come out the other end of that horseshoe, and Harden does too. The Rockets do. They're in the bottom of this horseshoe, even though I think Vegas has them favored to win the championship over Boston. But all we're doing is talking about leprechauns and Jason Tatum, and Harden is one of the best offensive players in his prime that we've ever seen.
The Rockets are very funny because they'll win 8 games in a row. Be like, they're figuring it out. And they'll lose to a team that has a center and be like, see, I told you, when they run into a team with a center, they're gonna have trouble. It's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Not sustainable in the postseason, man.
I love it. And Daryl Morey knows this. He was trolling people, trolling him. It's like, keep that energy for the playoffs. I hope your takes last in the playoffs. But we don't have to relitigate the Rockets. I love what they do, and they probably won't win a championship because it's really difficult to win a championship. But what they're doing is amazing, and it's working, and done.
So to be clear, the team that the Rockets lost to does have a dominant big man. His name's Mitchell Robinson, and that team is the New York Knicks.
Oh.
They ended the Houston Rockets' 6-game winning streak.
Yes,
in an incredibly exciting game. I was watching it. It was a wonderful game.
Inside baseball.
RJ Barrett came through, hit a weird twisting turnaround. That was a fun game.
Could have been an offensive foul. Inside baseball a little bit. A little boom boom room hangover for Harden and Russ, I would say. I'm not saying a certain Asian co-host of Cookies Hoops was there, but if he was, I would say maybe they were a little tired from the sparkling nightlife of New York City.
Andrew Kuo's nightlife remains undefeated. So how was that event? That was the GQ party, which shout out to Will Welch, a friend of the pod, and they had Harden and Westbrook on their March cover.
It was cool. It was tough because it was a Sunday, and the vibes in Sunday New York City nightlife could be popping or could not be, and that night was good. It was good to see all the corporate lunch friends, and I got to see a lot of our Cookies Midnight Run friends who play basketball at our affiliated runs in New York City. And that was fun to see, but it was cool. I like being in the room with ballers, but I could have been home too, like it was Sunday. But I love the Boom Boom Room. It's nice. It's a nice view. Venus X was playing music.
It's still the most beautiful venue in New York City.
Yeah, and
I love it. It feels special no matter what.
It's incredible looking, and I can't believe how old it is at this point because we were around when it opened up. But now it's not cool anymore, maybe. But on certain nights like this, it was very nice to be there.
Yeah, at this point, it's really an event space. It's not somewhere that I would recommend people just like go to Boom Boom Room. Like I don't really know what's happening there, but for those kind of events, it actually is more fun because it's like a treat.
Yeah,
that I don't go there frequently. And you're like, oh, that's right. I like being in this room. I like the windows. The ceiling looks like Madison Square Garden. It's sick.
I may be getting my years wrong, but I think I went there for a Barack Obama event for his first run. Am I off or his second? Who knows? But it's been around for a while. I've DJ'd there a little bit in the pool side of things, in the hot tub side of things. Laban. And the roof is nice. I don't know. I mean, you're the nightlife Batman.
I mean, that place and those dual venues on the roof of the Standard Hotel have been solid options for a long time and have done many, many good events there. It kind of falls into the category of like a classic venue at this point because now it's been around for 2 decades. Yeah,
and there's a lifespan of a venue where we go there to hang out and check it out and spend our time, and then we kind of recede and then only go there for special events, and the people who replace us are the people with actual money and spend money, and it's like the life cycle of every club is the same to me.
All right, so do a little snitching. Who is partying? Which of these players were going in? Who was lit?
I wish I had more. I really do.
Normally you just stare at Randalls at these events.
I know. I got to talk to Julius Randle before the season started, which was cool. He's a very big man wearing a lot of plaid. Shout out to Grunge. But I saw Russ and Harden through the corner of my eye, and I was looking for tertiary Rockets or Knicks. I couldn't find them. Couldn't find a Cov in the house.
Was PJ Tucker there?
I wish. And PJ Tucker blends.
I thought he would be there.
You'd think so too. The drip god. And maybe he was. Maybe I missed him. But I think he probably blends in better than most. You know how certain NBA players can blend in and then certain players cannot? And I'm not talking about stardom. I'm talking about like physique and like how tall they are. I mean, good luck being 7 feet and blending in. But PJ Tucker just could be like a big guy at a bar on a normal night.
Harden was at a GQ party that I attended in Paris like 2 years ago, and Tucker was with him. And you're right, Tucker's like 6'5". I mean, he's like a sizably built dude, but he does not like stand out in a crowd.
Yeah, and
he was very, very cool. I actually chatted with him for a little bit. He was a nice guy.
Yeah, man, I'm a PJ Tucker fan. Is he gonna get whooped in the playoffs? Can he do this? Are boomers right when they say he's gonna wear down as the big man on the Rockets?
Well, look, they lost their last game to the Knicks, so they're doomed.
What's up? Was that the last game of the Spike Lee era of the Knicks?
Okay, you're the resident Knicks fan here.
Love him.
Are you okay? Because I know how much you love Spike Lee and his presence courtside.
Sure.
Can you even follow this team if Spike's not there and like an orange leprechaun?
Can that be a new advanced metric? like the spike number, SPK maybe. Yeah, I like how people try to make it sound like Knicks fans have nothing, but at least we have Spike. I've not cared about Spike Lee for a long time, maybe since the Reggie Miller game. And he just seems like a MSG lackey. So my first reaction towards all this drama, all right, well, let's summarize really quickly. There was a kerfuffle at one of the entrances where Spike Lee was trying to enter the arena.
You hate to see it, man. It's just so arduous to feast your eyes upon.
Through the employee entrance at the Garden. And there's a VIP entrance that all the fancy people go through. But Spike Lee is Mr. Nick, so he gets to go through where the players go through for years. And allegedly, MSG has asked him not to do that and to use the VIP. So the other night, I believe for the Rockets game. Was it the Rockets game?
Yeah.
He goes in and they say, please use another entrance. And at first it seems like they are straight up harassing him. The optics are bad. He's a super fan. He's black. They're not letting him just go to where his seat is. It's horrible. Initially. The more we find out, the more complicated it is and dumb it is. I think Dolan approached him at halftime. Allegedly, he claimed that they had made up, and Dolan said, hey, you got to use the VIP.
So from one of my group chats, someone was standing right next to them and says that they did seem to be smiling and chatting.
There's pictures of them shaking hands.
Well, and Spike had said that felt like a setup that they did. They took a photo showing him shaking hands so they could say it had been worked out. But from someone who was right near them, said it did look totally cordial.
Yeah, and what goes down on Celebrity Row is all a setup. You cannot be everything you do there.
It's a conspiracy. Is
political. So like, yo, man, Spike was smiling and shaking his hand. Whatever. I read that as, oh, you guys squashed the beef. But then Spike goes on. First take, well, he sees the statement that MSG makes saying that, Spike, it was Spike's fault. That confrontation was Spike's fault. So Spike goes on First Take on ESPN the next morning, dressed in Knicks garb, kind of 60% incoherent and kind of Biden-esque, where you know what he wants to say, but he's not really like stating his case that well. And he's like throwing down platitudes, being like, I'm the number one Knicks fan. Like, I don't know why you're on my TV. This was just a little confrontation with a season ticket holder.
Right. I mean, look, my general stance on this is, to your earlier suggestion, he's kind of an employee. He's Mr. Knicks. I know he pays for tickets, but I always vaguely assume that he's sort of in cohort with the organization. Let him use whatever way he wants to get in. It's okay.
Yes.
That's just my general thing. Like, hey, just don't hassle Spike. He's there through thick and thin. He loves going to the games. People get a kick out of him being there. I mean, you don't, but people like seeing Spike there. Let him do what he wants. It's okay.
Yeah, and we all know these people at our local bars that want to go behind and pour themselves their own drinks. And some people can do that, and some people can't. And, when you say Spike is an employee of the Garden, he made a movie with Phil Jackson when Phil Jackson was hired for president about the triangle. And he got paid by MSG to do that. And that, if you can find that on YouTube, it's hilarious. Spike they're in front of a screen, and Phil Jackson's trying to tell him about the triangle. And Spike keeps on asking him where the triangle is. And Phil keeps on responding with, well, any 3 points forms a triangle, so it's more of an idea than an actual triangle. And Spike goes closer to the screen and it's like, I think I see where the triangle is. And Phil's like, no, there's no actual triangle. As soon as the ball is passed, it forms another triangulation of 3 points. And Spike, it was charming, but funny. And he's always, wanted the Knicks.
Remember the triangle offense?
That was cool. The triangle was cool, man. When it worked, it was awesome, right? I don't know.
When you had Jordan and Pippen?
Yeah, and Odom.
Shaq and Kobe?
Yeah. Yeah, it was another word for just a offensive play. It was no different than like a pick and roll play. It was just something people did. But Spike has always been on the side of the Knicks getting the boomer draft pick like Jahlil Okafor or the high-priced free agent. Like I think he really loved the Stephon Marbury, Zach Randolph era. I think he famously rejoiced when Isaiah Thomas acquired Zach Randolph. And I love Knicks fans, and I am as fault as much as all of us are. But sometimes I wonder what we actually care about, because the Knicks are actually in a good place. And after the Spike Lee moment, it's been a media drag of how bad the Knicks have been for so long.
The Knicks have had an opportunity for positive press for the first time in a long while. They got rid of Steve Mills, or at least
moved him,
shifted him within the organization to a place where he can do less public damage.
Printed new business cards for him, basically.
Mm-hmm. This time on bone cards. They removed David Fizdale, who the fans had turned on.
Shout out to Fizz.
But, they had done two moves that were generally embraced.
Fan-friendly.
By the fans.
Yeah.
No one's concerned about the team being bad because these heads have rolled.
Mm-hmm.
There was a furor because Knicks fans thought they deserved more. The Knicks lopped off a couple heads and were like, "Are you happy now?" And everyone's like, "Yeah, we're fine to just spend the rest of the season being bad. It's all good. We're good now."
Mm-hmm.
But they've somehow managed to create more bad press by sending out press releases. Like, stop doing things. They did not need to send out a press release. They don't need to do stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Those are unforced errors. But also, Spike he vibrates at a very high frequency, and there's two things at play here this week. And when Spike has always been this way since the 90s, it's about him. And shout out to Spike Lee. Not to soften anything, I think he made one of the best films I've ever seen in my life, and I really love his artwork.
Are you talking about Girl 6?
Yes, right. But that wasn't that bad either. That was a weird era for him. But I think I just don't care about Spike Lee as a Knicks fan, because he represents the kind of Knicks philosophy that I don't really think about often. So he's just not a part of my mind. And the framing of him as being wronged somehow is legit. And again, I see the optics. The optics are not good. James Dolan attacking Spike Lee is not the best thing, But at the same time, can't they get on the same page, because they're both working artists?
Just lay low and build,
Or not. How about this? Or be hilarious and build. Do you know what I mean? Like, aren't we doing this? Isn't this a soap opera? Like, I don't want them to be a quiet franchise. I love the Mark Cubans.
Is this all a Knicks strategy to make us forget that former Knick, Kristaps Porzingis, is now dominating?
Shout out to KP. I love it. He's so awesome. Finally, he's playing like we were hoping.
It was almost like after being out of basketball for a year and a half, it took him a little while to get good at the game again.
Yeah. And God, man, I just think of Cam Reddish. Like, he was dogged during the draft, and he was just hurt. And then he looked amazing when he was healthy. Now he's hurt again. But I think the Porzingis thing is cool to see him play this well. And I don't agree with the Knicks fans who are upset at that trade. I think you could frame it as they traded him for Taj Gibson and Dennis Smith Jr. if you want. That kind of works. But I understand what they were doing. And when maybe KD was never coming to New York, but when he went down with that knee injury or the Achilles, it changed everything. And what was done was done. It was a sunk cost at that point. They made a chess move and they got burned. That's okay.
Over the last 4 games, Kristaps Porzingis has scored Let's put up these lines: 34-12, 38-13, 24-13, 28-12. He's balling out, and I was not as forgiving of the trade as you were. I didn't like those draft picks. I didn't like Dennis Smith Jr.
Nope.
And I thought the whole point of being bad was to get a guy like Kristaps. He's young. He's good. I know he's coming off an injury, and he has been injury prone.
I was worried about his injury.
And I think that's a justifiable concern. To me, it's just like it's so hard to get one of those guys that you got to be really sure of what you're doing when you hit the reset button. To say, like, we're going to open up some space. These draft picks might be okay. Give us a prospect that we kind of liked in the draft. You got to be really sure. And I thought dealing KP always had more of a downside than I was uncomfortable with.
Yeah, and
or a more of a downside that I was comfortable with. What do I mean? Anyway, go on. You understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, and be careful because we just talked about recency bias, and he had a good 5 games. I think he is somewhere in between these 5 games and what we saw 20 games ago, which is very good. I like that Knicks risk a little bit. I thought their timeline didn't align with Porzingis's. I think they had more rebuilding to do, and he was going to be an old man by the time they got another Porzingis. So I was sad to see him go. But
right. I remember we had this discussion, and my biggest thing was, like, if you have KP and you have some cap space, that's a better situation to lure someone in, a potential star, than not having him there.
Well, the potential stars, we always have to think what's on the table. The stars on the table at that point. Kawhi wasn't going to New York. They were shooting for Durant and Kyrie, who are rumored to be interested. That's who they were going for. There wasn't KD 2 or Kyrie 2. And I'm kind of glad they didn't get KD and Kyrie now, but that's recency bias on my part. Maybe this time next year, those guys will be rolling. I hope so. But it was sad to see Porzingis go, and I'm really happy he's playing well, and he'll always be one of my favorite Knicks. But I understand what they did, and it could have turned out differently. The Knicks, I say it over and over, they're just a victim of stupidity and bad luck. And a lot of teams,
it is a tough combo to overcome.
A lot of teams are stupid and lucky, and a lot of teams are dumb and unlucky. You know, like it didn't work out for the Knicks, and I always come back to Ja Morant. If the Knicks get that ping pong ball and miss out on Zion but get Ja, and we're disappointed we don't get Zion, but still get this guy who's come up to be maybe the Rookie of the Year favorite, I think no one gets fired, and we're not talking about Spike Lee. Everyone says the future's bright, but they didn't do anything differently.
So let's talk about Dallas for a second here, because Dallas fits into the category of a mediocre organization that we think is smart because they're into metrics and things like that.
Rick Carlisle looks the part.
But they also got extraordinarily lucky.
Oh my God, yeah.
Because the Kings or someone else should have taken Doncic.
Marvin Bagley. And then the Hawks were willing to deal the pick. Everything worked out for them. But they made their luck, though.
They went and got their guy.
But Cuban also said he was tanking to get Doncic, and he had the assets.
Sure. But again, it's what you were saying about Ja Morant and Zion being 1 and 2, and the Knicks having the 3rd pick. Dallas could have made all those moves and tanked flagrantly as the Mavs did every season, basically. And they ended up with Dennis Smith Jr. The year before.
I know. Yeah.
You know, and for them to have done the exact same thing that they did, but have the Kings say, like, are you kidding? We're taking Doncic. And then all of a sudden they end up with Marvin Bagley Jr.
Right.
And we're looking at this team completely differently. They probably don't go and do a Kristaps trade at that point. Yeah. It's what you're saying. There's so much luck involved in all these decisions, and some of it is just fully out of your control.
Yeah, one team's stupidity is another team's luck. Like, the league in general is really lucky that the Phoenix Suns are so bad at this. The league is lucky that the Knicks are bad at this. And the chips kind of fall where they fall sometimes. I always think about Dan Gilbert, the owner. I would want to have less than James Dolan. And some guy from Akron just really loves to play at home.
It's wild. It's like, yeah, I'm from here. There you go.
Yeah, and Miami's lucky in the sense that kid from Akron was like, I'm gonna leave for a few years. Where's like the most beautiful place in the NBA? Oh, Miami sounds good. Let's all go to Miami. Like, yeah, there's some luck involved there. And so, we always joke that the Knicks, try to convince free agents with delicious knishes and pretzels and the Empire State Building and all these things that are kind of laughable at this point. But it's real. Like, if you like the Boom Boom Room, I don't know, come through, Giannis.
Looking at the Dallas Mavericks, they have Luka Doncic, who is a young phenom. And if they have this version of Porzingis, healthy and racking up numbers,
huge.
Are they a title contender?
No, there's just better teams. There's better players. I mean, Luka is a nuclear weapon, but the title contenders that we always talk about, those are just better squads from top to bottom.
No one is better at offense than the Mavericks. They are first in the league, and they are middle of the pack defensively. They are 17th ranked.
Huge. That's the difference, right? I mean, literally.
I mean, that's why they're not an incredible team. Their defense is not that great.
Yeah. Why isn't it? Why can't Porzingis lift them to a top 10 defense?
Yeah, I'm not sure, because he is a great rim protector.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, that's what you want. You want a shot blocker, someone who affects shots, and he's 7'2", 3. He does that.
Uh-huh. Is Porzingis not modern anymore? We call him the unicorn still. And last night I was watching the game, and they were talking about him as if he was the future. And I don't know if that future is still in play. The stretch big.
Well, to me, he's futuristic if he's a stretch 5. Mm-hmm. As a stretch 4, which is how the Knicks intended to use him, and always used him more frequently, surprisingly enough, as time went on. That, to me, was not unique at all. Yeah. And he also is not that efficient, because he does love mid-range jumpers.
Yeah. Man, I'm just watching his highlights right now, the corner of my eyes. I wish the Knicks still had him. Yeah.
There it is, a little bit of whist.
Oh my God, I love Porzingis. I mean, I get that way about Gallinari. Like, the Knicks had him. The Knicks had these really good players, and they haven't kept this. Like, I think Mike Breen was saying on TV, like, the future looks bright. We have all these picks coming up. I'm like, the last pick that they kept was Charlie Ward, which is amazing.
It's like, the drill. Get a tall Euro, boo him, fall in love with him, ship him out.
Yeah. I mean, the fans booing last night sell the team. I know the interns were going a little off on Twitter, but I think the disconnect between me personally and how I feel about the team and fans that say sell the team is kind of the way I feel about politics, right? Like, when someone says, but Bernie Sanders has the best ideas, I'm like, this is true. James Dolan is not the right owner, but do you understand what's happening? Like, the DNC and MSG are entities that have their own kind of ecosystem and process, or 180 spin.
Trust. The 180.
Like, Dolan's never going to sell the team, but he's actually doing things we want him to do. And the Spike Lee thing was optically poor, and agreed, he's terrible at that. But also, Spike, like, come back to the Garden and chill. I like how Stephen A. Smith, not chill, be calm, like, chill out with us, like, it's fine. But I think when Stephen A. asked him if he would go back to games, he kind of got like a reporter gotcha there, because Spike can't say he's going to go back because he looks like a sellout, thus creating the headline that Spike is boycotting the Knicks. I thought that was kind of a genius Stephen A. Smith move.
That was well done. Stephen A. Smith has navigated all this Knicks tumult majestically. Got Steve Stout on there, got Spike on there. Like, he is the puppet master.
He's awesome.
All always with Stephen A. up there grilling people about the Knicks and creating stories. He's a maestro.
Yeah, and his sleight of hand is, in his own word, bloviating, but then creating his own headline and having just Spike Lee say, yes, I agree. And then that's what runs on the Scion on ESPN. Spike is boycotting the Knicks. It's kind of a master class.
Yeah, and speaking of outrage and indignation among fan bases and media, we have our first blog entry up on Cookies Hoops, and it's about the fury that has overwhelmed the Sixers season, and that's up there for you to read. And it basically talks about this idea of a wrathful fan base getting upset over a situation that is A, quite good, and B, might actually be damaged by this kind of frenzied negativity.
Right, because at the end of the day, Embiid and Dolan hear these people and react in certain ways, which could lead them to trade away one of their young stars, possibly, because that's what the fans say they want, or kick the mascot, the celebrity, number one celebrity out of the arena. I mean, it's true. It's the fans want this power and they take it because they feel entitled to, and that makes sense. But then when it has effects, adverse effects, it's going to be hilarious.
Absolutely. And, as was mentioned in that blog entry,
Basketball Genius
up on cookieshoops.com, along with new shirts that are amazing. They are a long sleeve version of ones that you made with opening ceremony and several previous runs.
Printed matter.
And of New York Knicks, and now a Los Angeles Lakers homage, if you will.
Yeah, I hope I'm not being, is Pollyannic the right word? Like, I really am excited about the Knicks. Like, I'm ratcheting up my excitement because this is where it gets fun. And I just, it might not turn out perfectly. We might not get the Zion again, but this is a good time. We're looking towards the draft. We should be losing games. Smokes looks like he's healthy. Knicks fans should be excited, and I want to make merchandise.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. There is breaking news right now.
What's up?
Andrew Yang is starting a pod.
Wow.
Well, where is your king now?
Oh.
Just another podcaster, miserable talking head, chirping about Dolan into a microphone. Welcome to the club, Drew.
Well, it's funny how 6 months ago he was too spicy for you even. You're just like, these ideas are outlandish. Where is he coming from? Now he's too boring. He's doing a thing. It was announced that he's maybe doing a think tank, I think.
He's so boring, dude.
Well, he's doing a thing, right? Because his ideas were too spicy for you normies. And so he's backtracking and regrouping. If I told you, if Bernie Sanders was like, you know what, I'm really into UBI, you'd be like, yes, that sounds good.
So are we going to turn this into a metaphor about Chinese restaurants? And you're like, he's serving up the bland food for the public, and you're ordering off the secret menu?
If it was a metaphor for the Chinese food and politics in general, because that's what happened to Warren, right? Warren took away the spice and garlic, and it hurt her message. Maybe
not enough
maybe.
tarragon in her message as it unfolded over the last couple months.
Bernie could use some béarnaise or some butter. Buttigieg could have used some butter in his message.
Oh yeah, he could have flavored that mayo.
Yeah,
added a little Aleppo pepper.
But Yang is doing a thing, and we just have to wait because this is not the time for him to say anything weird. I watched him on TV during that entire Super Tuesday broadcast really late at night. He was hedging his words in that Magic Johnson Hall of Fame way because it doesn't benefit him to drop anything. Takes.
The intern's tweets comparing Andrew Yang to Magic Johnson have been quite entertaining.
Yeah.
It's the exact same tone, just sort of a meaningless statement with an exclamation point.
I know, which is so funny, right? Because a few months ago,
a glass of water.
Yeah, but a few months ago he was too spicy. Interesting. I think he's doing a thing, and it's like politics is this, man. Politics is full of but you did this and now you're doing this. I just want to see it play out because his effect won't be felt for years. Like, it's not what he is now. He's just biding time and creating a profile. So saying anything spicy now it's the tightrope he doesn't want to walk.
That's astute.
Whatever.
The Kuo theory.
Well, hey man, if people couldn't handle paying mothers at home, then they can't handle those hot Knicks takes that Spike Lee may not match. Yo, he sided with Spike Lee though. He said,
Of course
"I
he did.
stand
He
with Spike
always
Lee."
goes against Dolan.
I'd
Classic. Come on.
Well,
he
it's-
says if he's mayor, he would
make Dolan sell the team. Well, and to clarify,
you know he's a boomer. you love his ideas, but you know you're riding with a boomer.
maybe remember that it didn't work because he was not boomer enough. Bernie's a literal boomer.
He might be silent, Jen.
Maybe. But it's not like I side with Dolan. It's just chaotic things happening around a not brilliant person is like you could dissect it, and just to blame the not sharpest knife in the drawer is the easiest thing to do. But that Spike Lee thing, it wasn't all Dolan's fault. And the Charles Oakley thing, I always thought you can't be an angry employee, go back to your employer's place of business and start a fight. You just can't do that.
You're saying I can't do that at like the Staples call center?
Right. Like if you rolled back in to the
Manhattan Jeep?
Yeah.
Got in a fight over a Dodge minivan?
Yeah. Like
It's frowned upon, I'll tell you that much.
But hey man, it's all about those damn ping pong balls. Another Chinese influence into our zeitgeist. Andrew Yang and those ping pong balls.
The alliance is strong right now.
The alliance is pretty strong. No. The alliance has never been weaker. I mean, come on. This has not been a good week. Let's be honest.
What do you think about every media outlet writing a story about coronavirus just puts up a photo of Chinatown?
Yeah, it's wild.
It's like, yes, an Iranian woman who lives in Midtown, like, and here's your photo of Flushing.
No.
Like, what's wrong? Why do they keep doing that?
Coronavirus case identified in Midtown Manhattan. Here's Main Street in Flushing, with Chinese people in it. I'm going to be annoying about this, not shockingly. Of course, everyone's a little bit racist. Everyone sees color. Everyone puts stories into compartments that make the most sense to them. And coronavirus did originate in Wuhan, China. I'm not upset.
A lot of the current cases are people who got it in Italy. Mm-hmm. I think they should show, I don't know, like little Frankies.
It's like
someone spinning a pizza dough in the air with every article about coronavirus.
It's like our president being so disappointed that there's cases in Scandinavia. He's like, what? They have it there too? I don't understand. But, it started in Wuhan, and China did an awful, awful job of reporting it understandably and containing it understandably. That I say that understandably because they're not equipped to do it societally. They have the money.
It's spreading via Super Mario Kart. It's Italians, man. They are the ones bringing it here. This is the handiwork of Waluigi. For sure.
I love cookies.
But why didn't they show
Cookies.
I don't want to get into it, but
A bunch of wet noodles.
I love cookies.
ooh, Josh Richardson, that wet noodle game.
Well, I think we've extinguished our coronavirus chat for today, and our politics talk, our Spike Lee talk. This feels like a good time to sign off.
Quick, who's your rookie of the year?
Man, John Morant, come on. Zion's played like 15 games and he's a prom king.
Yep.
He's awesome. I love Zion. But he's a prom king.
But Jaws lost a couple games.
Recency bias rears its ugly head once again.
Cookies.